Hello and welcome to Elevate Your Wealth. I'm your host, Casey Elkins, co-founder and managing partner at Elevated Financial Management. I'm joined as always by Mark Stimpson, my friend, father-in-law, and business partner. We have the tremendous pleasure of educating you folks each and every week about what retirement looks like and what it could look like if you take the right steps as you're planning. Today, we're talking about one of our favorite subjects, Mark, which is income, more specifically, guaranteed income, which we feel people are really lacking in their retirement. Before we jump into it, how you doing? How are things around the office?
It's good. It's always great to be with you, Casey. I think our viewers know we are big sports fans up in our hometown. It's right in the middle of Mariner baseball season, and we're in first place, so that always makes us feel good, right? And so, but we've also expanded our office. We have a wonderful CPA in our firm, as well as all kinds of other office staff. So we're here to educate our viewers. That's why we do this show. That's why we're on radio in Seattle every week, right? We teach at several of our local community colleges about income, retirement, and tax planning. And today's show, I am looking forward to this one big time because, again, we believe, we keep it simple in our office, a red, yellow, and a green bucket, right? And the green bucket is the guaranteed income bucket. And we believe that every good plan, we catapult off of that, because you could have a big 401k, right, with a couple $1 million in it, but you have to turn it into income. What's the best way to do that, right? And so that's what our green bucket is. And we're going to talk about the importance of having that and why it's so critical today, because pensions have really become a thing of the past.
Yeah, that really is the truth. I mean, you know, we see a lot of folks in Seattle that do have pensions, teachers, state employees, federal employees, things like that. Boeing, right? Boeing still has... Well, they don't offer pension for new employees, right?
15 years now.
It is grandfathered in, right, for those that have been there long enough. But it's a dying breed, right? It is a dying breed. And I think I speak for both of us, Mark, when I say that when we look at our client base and we think about the happiest clients that we have, it's the ones that have the most guaranteed income. It's the ones with multiple income sources. And it really just comes back to the confidence that they have to be able to go and enjoy their time. And you know what, that's really what caught our eye specifically about this. So the Employee Benefit Research Institute, right, very interesting, finds that retirees with guaranteed income streams tend to preserve their assets longer and enjoy greater financial stability than those relying mainly on investment withdrawals. And I'm going to say a bad word because it's mentioned right here. They talk about pensions and annuities as creating that income. And in the financial world, sometimes, or maybe not even in the financial world, maybe just in the world in general, that word annuity has a negative connotation. We're going to talk about that today. But the key here really is that income is what gives people the confidence to go spend and enjoy in their retirement. And I think you would 100% agree with that.
Yeah, and the interesting part is what people don't realize, that Casey mentioned the A word, right? Like it's a bad word. But you know what? If you're fortunate enough to have a pension in this country, I wish I had as many pensions as I get my hands on, right? I met an individual who had 3 pensions, and I looked at him, how did you do that? He goes, I had a military, a civil service, and a small private pension, but he also had Social Security. And the interesting thing when you think about that, every one of those 4 sources of income are annuities, okay? So anybody that wants to try and tell us how bad annuities are, they really don't understand them enough, because I think that's foolish. It's a tool, right? We're not just an outfit or a firm that just sells annuities. We solve problems, right? And if somebody needs long-term care, you're going to look at a standalone plan, or you're going to look at maybe a hybrid life insurance policy, right? Life insurance, there's different types of life insurance policy, but you have to get a policy if you want to protect certain things, just like car insurance, right? Home insurance, it takes a tool to do that, and it's no different for income. When you really think about this, our single biggest asset for most people is their home. But next to that is going to be what they've saved for retirement, right? And think about all an annuity does, it's insurance on that plan that you might have $1 million, $2 million, $500,000. The number doesn't matter. But all an annuity is insurance. Why would we not want to insure one of our biggest assets? You know, ask somebody that's just gone through a tornado or somebody that just lost a home in a fire, the devastating fires that happened in California. We're all familiar with what happened. Do you think insurance mattered to those individuals? You better believe it. We all don't like insurance companies until we need them.
Right.
Until they got to write us a big check. Then it's like, boy, am I glad I had that. Well, we feel the same way about guaranteed income. And we have found, and we do hundreds and hundreds of calculations for clients each and every year, the annuity does serve and create a guaranteed income stream as good as it. In fact, from a guaranteed standpoint, there isn't a tool that I know of that's better than that. Now, the market can be great when the market's going up. We love dividend strategies, but it's not so fun when the market's tanking, right? And you're having to draw down money off of that. Then I'll take the guaranteed income all day long. So again, it's a tool, but if it's used in the right way, it solves so many things that you can't do without it.
You know what? You use that word tool a couple of times, and it really comes back to the idea of purpose-built, right, or purpose-driven. Perfect example. Car analogies are easy for me because I'm a car guy, right? So I've said this before, but you don't buy a big truck to get good gas mileage, and you don't buy a Prius to tow a boat. Now, you can tow a boat with a Prius. That's kind of a funny image if you think about it.
Not very long.
Yeah, but it's not the right tool in the right application. Just the same way that you get some kind of fuel mileage with a big truck, but it's not the fuel mileage that you want. And when it comes to your retirement, are you using the right tool for the specific application? Now, Mark, I know you're a DIY guy when it comes to the household, right? And so am I. I like house projects. And sure, you can drive a screw with a hammer. It does, I guess, kind of work, right? It'll push the screw in there, but it isn't the right tool. And that's really the same thing that we're talking about here, is it's about educating about what is the right tool in the right circumstance. And all too often we see people trying to use their growth investments to create income in their retirement. What's the issue with what I just said? Their growth investments to create the income in their retirement. Those are two opposing things, right? The tools that do growth really well are very poor at creating income. And the tools that do income very well were never designed for growth. That's not their purpose, right? And there's three main things that folks need in their retirement. They need growth, they need income, and they need liquidity, right? And so you mentioned that we use buckets in our office. Those are the three different pieces, the three different problems that we try and solve when it comes to income planning and structuring a foundation for retirement. Maybe you can expand a little bit more on those three, the income, the liquidity, and the growth that folks need.
Yeah, so if you ever come into the office, we have these beautiful glass boards in our conference rooms, and they have, as you mentioned, three different buckets, just like a stoplight, red, yellow, green. So our yellow bucket is designed for liquidity. We want to have a minimum of usually 6 to 12 months of normal expenses. So if a client says, okay, Mark, I need $7,000 a month, we want them to have anywhere from 30 to 50,000 or maybe a tad more in liquidity in the bank, checking and savings and high yield, maybe money market accounts, right? Because life happens. The red bucket is once we get, well, let me go to green next. Green is our income bucket. That's going to be Social Security. And if you're fortunate enough to have a pension, that's going to be in our green bucket. That's going to be what we're going to live on each and every month, right? And then if we have to, a lot of us that are not going to have pensions, we have to create our own. We create a private pension. That's the annuity world, right? That's going to be the green bucket. The red bucket, after we have the yellow and the green set up, we are going to look at the red bucket for long-term growth.
Right.
We don't want to have, usually we look at least 10 to 15 years out. What does that mean? That means we can swing for the fence. We're usually not going to put any bonds in that bucket. We're going to use equities because we want the highest potential growth on the red money. And if we just know our clients that are using that strategy, they are successful and they're not having an income. They didn't have an income issue in 2000 in the dot-com bubble when it broke, and it didn't affect them negatively in 2008, one of the greatest crises, in the last 50 years. So again, if you have the right type of strategy and you siloed the money off into those buckets, it's going to work whether the market's going up or down. And I think that's what we want to see happen. No matter what the economic conditions are, clients still need to pay their bills, and guaranteed income is going to solve that
That's
problem.
exactly right, Mark. It's about the strategy, right? And making sure that you're positioned in the right way. You see the number on the screen, 844-342-7142. This is your opportunity to make sure that you have the right strategy. Or perhaps when you think about your retirement plan, maybe it's just a mix of retirement accounts and isn't actually a plan to make them all work together. If you'd like to figure out how to do that, this is your chance to do just so. 844-342-7142. We will design a written financial plan, custom tailored just for your specific situation. We will answer all the questions that you have, all those concerns, the topics, the things that we focus on right here on this show each and every week. 844-342-7142. Don't change the dial. We're going to come back right here to Elevate Your Wealth. We're going to talk more about creating income in retirement and making sure you have the stability that you need.
Call 844-342-7142 for your own complimentary written financial plan with Risk Report. Why take unnecessary risk when you don't have to? At 65 years old, would you drive to the grocery store at 100 miles an hour if 40 miles an hour would get you there safely? When nearing retirement, are you still driving your investment accounts like you're in your 30s or 40s? Have you changed your investment elections since you first chose them in your retirement accounts at work? Call Casey, Mark, and the team at 844-342-7142 for your own investment risk report and written financial plan. Do you know exactly how much risk you're taking in your investment accounts? Now that you've accumulated a nest egg for retirement, you want to be certain the risk you're taking in those investments matches your goals and objectives. Call Mark, Casey, and their team at 844-342-7142 for your own complimentary risk report and written financial plan, or use the QR code below to begin scheduling your appointment. You may not have time to recover from taking too much risk.
You've got quite an extensive resume. Wow, so many years of management. Bet that was fun. So this job requires basic knowledge of the social media and video platforms, content creation, and SEO. How proficient are you in those areas?
Going back to work after retiring is not ideal. Plan your retirement right. Call now for your own complimentary portfolio review and tax analysis.
Hello and welcome back to Elevate Your Wealth. I'm your host, Casey Elkins. We're talking about creating income in retirement. And if there is one thing that creates confidence and a true foundation to a retirement plan, is its strong income and making sure that you know where it's coming from, how much you can rely on each and every month. And right in our office in Renton, Washington, Mark, we sit down each and every day and we talk about creating that income with retirees in the Seattle area, because that is the foundation. When you think about a house being built, it's great if you got a beautiful roof and the walls and you hang pictures inside, but if it isn't built on a strong foundation, it doesn't mean anything. And it is exactly the same case when it comes to a retirement plan. If we don't have the income that we need, that really can spell disaster for folks that are moving into retirement. Now, there's something interesting. Again, we're talking about different articles that we find as we go through trying to make sure that we're keeping up with what's going on in the world. And really what the article highlights is that those with pension income or guaranteed sources of income actually end up keeping more of their wealth in retirement. And man, that's a really interesting thought. Would you tell us more about it?
Yeah, in fact, it was staggering, these figures. It says retires with modest savings and no pension saw their assets fall 89% over 2 years. I mean, 20 years, 2 decades is what I meant to say. You know, but think about that. You're losing almost 90% of your money when you don't have guaranteed income versus just losing 29% for those that had guaranteed income. So the article talks, and this is coming from the Employee Benefit Institute. They are the ones that study employees' benefits and what works and what doesn't work.
Right.
And I just, like I said, this article was so good. It says, as traditional pensions keep disappearing, the report argues future retirees will increasingly need to build their own protected lifetime income through tools like immediate annuities, deferred annuities, QLACs, we won't get into that, and guaranteed lifetime withdrawal benefits. But again, they're saying, there goes that A word again, right? You're gonna need to look at annuities because they solve a problem better than any other vehicle,
right,
over time and with guarantees. We're not saying everyone should have an annuity. Now, the bulk of our clients in our office, they do have annuities, right? Because they want guaranteed income.
Yeah.
But I think it's set up in the right way and a good plan, because we manage a lot of money in the red market. Our RIA firm is significant. And so they manage a lot of the assets for people where we're keeping money in the market. So we don't just do annuities. I want our viewers to understand that it's just a tool that we use to help create guaranteed income. And I don't know, every client that we've talked with over the last 40 years, for me, has never said, you know what, Mark and Casey, you created too much income. Can I give some of it back? It never works that way. We live our life based on income. That's why it's the springboard for our plan. We've got to get income set. Then we're going to worry about how to grow the market assets, or what the red bucket, for simplicity reasons. But again, you got to have a plan. You got to be willing to talk to somebody, but everything is going to hinge on setting up income.
Yeah, you know, I think, Mark, what I'd really love to talk about is about not just the finance of it, right? Because we talk about finance every day, but how does this really impact somebody's emotional state in retirement? How does this play into the psychology behind a solid retirement plan, right? Because if it's only about ever having the biggest account in retirement, that's one goal. And you know what? That is the goal for some folks. But I think realistically, for our audience, if you think back to when you started your 401k, when you started saving for retirement, it was exactly that. It was for retirement. It was so that you would work today and build that account so that at some point in the future, you could create income from the funds that you had saved. The ultimate goal was for that money to be income at some point in your life, and for those finances to start to take care of you. And all too often, we see people move into retirement, and their number one goal is still maximum growth on the investments. And not only is that really not what that money was supposed to be purposed for to begin with, it also can spell a recipe for disaster using a growth tool when you really need income in your life. But how does that psychology play in when we think about a retirement plan and someone who has the guaranteed income and really just has the income to go do what they want to do with their time?
Yeah, I am glad that you brought this up, Casey, because I think the mental part of retirement doesn't get talked about enough. We could all have a big 401k, but you know what? We've mentioned this before on shows. Our happiest clients are the ones that have solid income streams. It just seems to work out that way every time. We just know that over a 4-decade career. I know I've seen it. And I can't overemphasize how important the ones that seem to have that income taken care of, they are less stressful. They're living the life that they dreamed about, and they're not worried about, PE ratios or what's the market doing today. They get that check deposited every month, and they go live their life. And I think there's so much to be said for that, because the financial freedom that gives them to not worry about where the next meal is going to come from, because they're so stressed out about losing 20, 30, 40% of their money. And we've already mentioned how many 85-year-olds have 100% of what they started with, maybe 25 years earlier.
Because they're afraid to spend it, right?
They were worried about losing the money, right? So they didn't live the life. And how many trips maybe with their children did they give up because they didn't have the confidence to be able to feel like they could spend it, right? Look what they missed out on. And that's one of the things that we share in our office. We want our clients to be able to pass money on to their children and grandchildren with warm hands and not cold hands. I want them to be making memories now. Not that we don't want to give a legacy to our children on the back end, right? That's great too. But I'd rather do it when I'm alive. So additional income is going to allow you to do that and feel confident about being able to do that, right? That's the key.
Yeah, you mentioned something about the folks that have that guaranteed income. So we had a gentleman come into the office, I'm sure you remember. I think he had seen us on maybe the TV show or radio, I don't recall exactly, but he was a police officer and then went from being a police officer to being a firefighter. And then had a pension through what's called Left 2, which is essentially for law enforcement and firefighters. Had a pension that was over $200,000 a year. It was like almost $20,000 a month that he was getting in his retirement. On top of that, he had a very sizable savings account, 401k, deferred compensation, IRAs, things like that, really had done quite well. And when we asked him what his goal was for that money that he had saved, that chunk of funds, he said he just wanted to grow it for the future. Why was it that he was able to say, well, I just want to grow it and give it to my kids? It's because he had almost $20,000 a month worth of income.
Guaranteed
So there
income.
just isn't a lot for him to be worried about in his own retirement. Here's another example. Mark, if I told you today, you could retire today, you never have to work a day in your life, you can have the same income that you have now, would you ask me, well, how much is going to be in my investment account? No.
Nope.
You'd sign on the dotted line in a second, right?
I would be gone.
And who wouldn't, right? Because it's about the income. That's the goal. That's the purpose behind all of this. So, Mark, maybe what you could do, could you share with our audience, if they're willing to pick up the phone and give us a call, what they could expect if they do that?
Yeah, please. If you're watching, you're hearing us talking about income, right? But our phone number is 844-342-7142. If you'll pick up the phone and call us, we're going to just have a conversation. We're going to ask you to leave your checkbook at home. Nobody knows whether they're going to become a client or not. We don't know if we can help you, but we're going to talk about taxes. We're going to talk about Medicare. What's the best way to know that my income is guaranteed, as we've been talking about? Do you have a plan for that? What about, how do I move money to my children? Am I a business owner? Do I have a succession plan? How can I maybe price my business so that I can retire someday? All these things are questions that many of you viewers are having right now. Pick up the phone, give us a call. Let our team of financial planners put together a plan specifically around your situation, nobody else's. Pick up the phone, call 844-342-7142.
Thank you so much, Mark. Again, for our audience at home, 844-342-7142. You can scan the QR code there on the screen, take advantage of that, set the appointment yourself, or you can give us a call and our team will be happy to find a time convenient for you and for us as well. Please don't change the channel. We're going to come right back here to Elevate Your Wealth. We're going to talk about taking that trip, taking that vacation in retirement, and spending that money efficiently. We'll see you right back here in just a minute.
Call 844-342-7142 to receive your complimentary written financial plan and Social Security optimization report. Get the most from Social Security payments. Find a strategy that maximizes your Social Security benefit and preserves the assets you've saved for retirement. Social Security seems easy, right? The question is, should you take it now or later? There are numerous ways to take Social Security. The decisions you make can also affect how much you pay in taxes. You've paid into Social Security for decades. Now you want to make sure you optimize your retirement income. Call Mark Casey and their team at 844-342-7142 for your complimentary written financial plan and Social Security maximization report. You need a retirement income plan that accounts for all your assets. Call Casey, Mark, and their team right now at 844-342-7142 to receive your complimentary written financial plan and Social Security maximization report. Or use the QR code on the screen to schedule your appointment today.
Welcome back to Elevate Your Wealth. Again, I'm your host, Casey Elkins. We're talking about income in retirement, spending in retirement, how to maximize it. And, you know, there's just a brief story that I want to share with our audience because this is something that we've seen firsthand in our office a couple of times. And this is why we're talking about income today. We have seen on multiple occasions folks that have been retired for a few years before we meet them, and they've got a plan put together by a financial planner or an advisor, and that plan really just had them living on their Social Security, maybe some dividends from their portfolio. And so we had that for a woman that came into our office, and when she came in, we realized that she had roughly $1 million portfolio that she had saved. She'd worked hard, she was a single mother, and she saved that chunk of funds, but she was afraid to spend it because it wasn't regular income to her. She wasn't sure how long it would last, how much she could take, and how to make sure that market volatility didn't devastate her retirement. And so what she did was she pared down her life to just living on the income that she had. And all too often, that is something that we see. And that is exactly why this article caught our attention. It says, go ahead, take that vacation. And we could not be more on that path with our clients. We want to see them out there living it up, having the time of their lives. And we are privileged to be a part of that in their lives. As I think you mentioned earlier today, we get pictures from folks really all around the world at this point. We have clients in many countries, I think 7 countries at this stage, and they send us pictures of what they're doing in their retirement, and it's a tremendous joy for us. And so we wanted to talk about this to help people have confidence as they go spend in their retirement.
I just love this. One sentence here says it all to me. It says, the research says a lot of retirees are actually underspending. Underspending, not overspending. How do you build a plan that gives people permission to enjoy their money early? That's the key to this whole thing. Is we want the money, we call it on the front end, right? When we have decent health, we can go do things. Because as our health begins to get worse and worse, you might need more money for health costs, but you're gonna be doing less, maybe travel or visiting with our grandchildren. See, so for us, I just think it's critical to help clients have as much money on the front end at more than what they think they need to spend, right? Because we don't want them to live a retirement or a less than, how many times do we use that term? A less than retirement, because they're so afraid to touch their money. You think you got $1 million, but you're afraid to touch it? You know, that's just, I feel bad for clients that are stuck in that mode, and there are people that are there. We know, we talk about it every day. They're stuck. They don't want to spend the money because they believe once they go into that it's going to run out. They may not make it to the end. And we want to be able to show them mathematically how they can do it and give them the confidence to do it and feel great about maybe taking a trip every year or 2 with their grandchildren, doing things that they wanted to do their whole life.
That's exactly what it's all about, is having that confidence in your retirement and making sure that you know what you can spend, making sure that you know exactly how to go about taking those distributions and those withdrawals. So you see the number on the screen, 844-342-7142. Please take advantage of it. If you've been watching the show for some time and you just have unanswered questions, you want to find out how what we talk about pertains to you and your specific situation, please take advantage of this opportunity to get a written financial plan. We will sit down and talk about the risks that you're taking, when you should start your Social Security, what taxes may look like, and how to create that income for retirement. 844-342-7142. We'd love to see you around the office. We'd love to know that this is having an impact in your lives. Please take advantage of it. We'll look forward to seeing you again right here next week on Elevate Your Wealth.